You prayed, you waited, and nothing happened. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and heaven stayed silent. You started to wonder, did God forget me? Every unanswered prayer began to feel like rejection. Every delay started to feel like proof you weren't chosen. But what if the delay wasn't punishment? What if the silence was strategy? What if the waiting was the workshop where your next chapter is being built? Every silence has a purpose. Every pause hides divine construction. When God goes quiet, he's not ignoring you. He's drafting your destiny. He's shaping the strength you'll need for the thing you asked him for. He's removing what you can't see, preparing what you can't handle, so that when the door finally opens, you're ready to walk through it without breaking. You're not being denied, you're being developed. You gave your best, and still the doors stayed shut. You worked in silence when no one believed in you. You stayed up late when everyone else gave up. You sacrificed sleep, comfort, pride, all for a dream you thought would have opened by now. But instead of progress, you got silence. Instead of answers, you got delay. And now, the noise of your own thoughts is louder than any crowd could ever be. You scroll through your phone, watching others rise. People who seem less deserving, less disciplined, less ready. They're celebrating. They're shining, and you're still waiting. It hurts. Because deep down, you don't just want success, you want proof that all this struggle means something. Proof that your prayers are not echoes, but all you hear is silence. That silence, it's heavy. It makes you question everything. You start to wonder if maybe God skipped your name, maybe he changed his plan, maybe you misheard your purpose altogether. And that thought that maybe you were wrong, it breaks something inside you. You still smile in front of people. You still post like everything's fine. But your soul knows the truth. There's a storm inside you that no one else can see. A battle between faith and frustration. Between keep believing and what's the point. You lie awake at night replaying the timeline. The moments you thought were leading somewhere. You start asking questions that echo through the dark. What did I do wrong? Why does everyone else move forward while I stay still? Why would God make me dream if he never planned to deliver? But maybe, just maybe, the delay is not a denial. Maybe that silence isn't rejection, it's refinement. Because pain is not proof of abandonment, it's proof of alignment. The truth is, God doesn't delay what you're ready for. He delays what would destroy you if you got it too early. Think about it. A child can't carry the same weight as a grown man. A seed can't stand in the sun until it survives the soil. Before gold shines, it must endure the fire. And before purpose blooms, it must learn to breathe in patience. So when the doors stay closed, it's not because God is saying no. It's because he's still building you behind them. Every disappointment, every lonely night, every unanswered prayer is shaping the strength you'll need for the thing you asked him for. He's developing your heart so you can handle the blessing. He's deepening your character so success won't destroy your humility. He's stretching your patience so your victory will have roots, not wings. You see, blessings are not light. They're heavy. They require endurance to carry. And sometimes God keeps you in the waiting room so he can strengthen your arms before he hands you the weight of destiny. So if it feels like you're being tested, you are. If it feels like you're being pushed to your breaking point, you are. But remember, gold only breaks before it becomes pure. God's silence is not absence, it's strategy. He's aligning everything in a way you can't yet understand. He's teaching you trust not when it's easy, but when it feels impossible. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. And the waiting is sacred ground, because it's in the waiting that your faith learns to breathe. It's in the waiting that your heart learns what surrender really means. It's in the waiting that you find the version of yourself strong enough to hold what you once begged for. So when it feels like nothing's happening, remember, everything is. Just not where you can see it. The roots grow before the flower blooms. The foundation forms before the house stands. And the soul matures long before the success appears. This is the phase no one claps for. The part of the story that doesn't go viral. But this is where greatness is forged. When you're staring at locked doors, when you feel unseen and unheard, when you're tempted to believe you've been forgotten, that's when heaven is closest. Because delay doesn't mean denial. It means development. And if you can stay faithful in the silence, you'll emerge with something far stronger than the thing you prayed for. You'll emerge with the strength to carry it. There comes a moment when the night begins to break. It's quiet, barely noticeable at first, but it's there. The stillness changes. The air feels different. You can't explain it, but you feel it. The heaviness starts to lift. It's not that everything suddenly gets better. It's that something inside you starts to shift. The same silence that used to feel like punishment now starts to feel like protection. You begin to understand. Maybe this delay isn't working against me. Maybe it's working for me. Every seed waits in darkness before it breaks the soil. Every dream hides before it shines. Every vision must survive its season of invisibility. And that's what this waiting really is, a hidden season. The part of your story no one claps for, but the most important part of all. Because no flower blooms in the light first. It begins underground, in silence, in pressure, in darkness. It grows roots before it grows petals. And those roots are what keep it alive when storms come. That's what your delay is doing. It's growing your roots. The world can't see it yet, but heaven can. You're being strengthened in private for a public moment that's still being written. Napoleon Hill once said, "Every adversity carries within it the seed of equal or greater benefit." That's not just philosophy, it's law. Because every loss, every delay, every heartbreak plants something inside you that cannot be grown in comfort. Adversity doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to define you. It shapes your patience, sharpens your faith, and carves out the depth needed for destiny. You're not being denied, you're being developed. And development always happens in the dark. Think about it. Babies grow in the dark womb before birth. Seeds grow in dark soil before the bloom. Dreams grow in dark nights before the dawn. Darkness isn't the end. It's the environment where creation begins. So maybe the silence you've been resenting is actually the space where God is constructing. Maybe the nothing happening is everything happening, just beyond your sight. You start to feel it. A small whisper rising inside you. I'm still in this. I'm not done yet. You realize that faith isn't about seeing the path. It's about walking when there's only fog. Faith is not sight. It's trust. Faith is saying, I don't see the results yet, but I believe something is shifting. Faith is standing in the same place that broke you and still saying, I'm growing here. Faith is seeing progress before progress ever sees you. It's that inner knowing that even in stillness, you're moving, that even in silence, you're heard, that even in waiting, you're watched over. And suddenly, the darkness starts to make sense. You realize this is not delay, it's design. Because if God answered your prayers too early, your roots would be too weak to hold what He gave you. You'd rise too fast and collapse just as quickly. The waiting, as painful as it is saving you from becoming unstable success. Every day of stillness, every tear, every lonely night, it's not wasted. It's woven. It's forming the foundation that your next season will stand on. You can't see it, but one day you'll look back and realize the things you called delay were actually development. The things you cursed as closed doors were divine protection. God doesn't deny His promises. He times them. He waits until the weight of His blessing won't crush the strength of His creation. And that's why He slowed you down, to save you from falling when you finally rise. You start to breathe differently. You start to wake up not asking why, but what am I learning? Because now you see the pain had a purpose. You remember the moments when everything fell apart and you thought it was over. But now standing here, you realize those very moments shaped the parts of you that are still standing. You start to see that the loss was never loss. It was the lesson you couldn't get from comfort. You start to understand that rejection was God's redirection, that unanswered prayer was protection, that disappointment was discipline for destiny. And all along, The delay was developing you, developing your patience, developing your strength, developing your vision, developing your gratitude, because it's only when things slow down that you finally learn how to listen. It's only when plans fall apart that you find out what's real. And it's only when God makes you wait that you learn what faith truly is. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. It's choosing to trust the plan even when you don't understand it. Faith is walking through the valley without needing proof of the mountaintop. It's believing that every delay is building the version of you that can carry the destiny you dreamed of. The person you were at the start wasn't ready for what you prayed for. That person didn't yet have the depth, the focus, or the endurance. But through the delay, through the silence, through the pain, you're becoming that person. You're becoming the kind of person who can handle the miracle. And one day, when the blessing finally arrives, you won't just thank God for giving it to you. You'll thank Him for making you wait. Because the waiting made you. It taught you who you are when no one's watching. It revealed your strength. It stripped your pride. It deepened your gratitude. It made you grounded. Every second of the delay was divine. Every silence was sacred. Every moment you thought was wasted time was actually seed time. The soil looked empty, but underground, everything was happening. Roots were spreading. Faith was forming. Patience was maturing. And strength was being born. So if you're still waiting, it doesn't mean you've been left behind. It means you're being equipped. You are being built quietly for something loud. You are being developed privately for something public. You are being strengthened slowly for something that will last. Don't curse the dark room where God is developing you, because that's where the image becomes clear. And when the time comes, when the light finally hits, when the door opens and the world sees what you've become, they'll think it happened overnight. But you'll know the truth. You'll know about the nights that tested your faith, the days that broke your heart, the seasons that stretched your soul, and you'll whisper to yourself, this was never a delay. This was development. There comes a day when you stop waiting for rescue, when you stop begging for answers, when you stop looking for signs, something inside you quietly changes. You no longer wake up asking, why me? Instead, you whisper, prepare me. That's the moment the climb begins. Not because everything got easier, but because you finally decided to rise anyway. It's the day you understand that faith isn't just about believing when it feels good. Faith is about moving when it still hurts. It's about walking forward when you can't yet see where the path leads. It's about pushing when your legs are shaking, and trusting that every step, even the smallest one, is pulling you closer to something you can't yet see. The silence that once broke you now becomes your training ground. The same stillness that used to scare you now feels like strength. Because you've learned heaven's silence doesn't mean absence. It means preparation. And so you rise. You open your journal again. You read again. You work again. You pray again, not for the mountain to move, but for the strength to climb it. You realize that every delay was a lesson in disguise, a personal classroom where discipline was being built, brick by brick. Every failure, every closed door, every lonely night, they were teaching you persistence. They were strengthening your willpower, your resilience, your spirit. Because the climb is never about reaching the top. It's about who you become on the way there. You start showing up differently, not because everything makes sense now, but because you finally trust the process more than your pain. The same pressure that breaks glass forms diamond. Pressure, that word that once terrified you, is now the weight that's shaping your greatness, because nothing worth having is formed in comfort. Diamonds aren't born in daylight, they're born in the depths of heat and time. So when you feel the weight again, when life presses hard on your shoulders, don't ask for it to stop. Ask for the strength to endure it. Because the pressure isn't punishing you, it's polishing you. You begin to work quietly, steadily. No more dramatic posts. No more comparing timeline. No more begging the world to notice your grind. Now it's just you, your purpose, and your persistence. You wake up and choose discipline, even when motivation is gone. You stop chasing speed and start respecting direction. You realize the real test of faith isn't how loud you pray. It's how consistently you act when your prayers seem unanswered. Every act of patience is a declaration of faith. Every morning you wake up and try again. That's faith. Every day you resist the urge to quit. That's every small unseen effort when no one's watching. That's faith in motion. You begin to understand what it means to trust unseen timing, to work with no applause, to move without validation, to build when no one claps. Because you finally realize the world doesn't owe you recognition. Your purpose isn't proven by their applause, it's proven by your persistence. The climb humbles you. It strips away pride and performance. It shows you who you are without the spotlight. And it teaches you that true success is not when people see your work, it's when God sees your faith. That's the shift. From despair to discipline, from complaining to committing, from waiting to working. The climb begins quietly. No fireworks, no announcements, just a small decision, repeated over and over again. And that's where transformation starts. Not in the big leaps, but in the small, steady steps that nobody celebrates. Because consistency is louder than emotion, patience is louder than panic, and obedience is louder than fear. The more you climb, the more your vision changes. The mountain that once seemed impossible now feels purposeful. The obstacles that once made you cry now make you strong. You start to feel gratitude for the grind. You start to thank God for the waiting, for the lessons, for the hard days. Because now you see, none of it was wasted. Every delay was developing your endurance. Every rejection was sharpening your focus. Every disappointment was redirecting your steps. The climb builds resilience you didn't know you had. It burns away the excuses. It forces you to choose between comfort and calling. You begin to see discipline, not as punishment, but as love. Because God disciplines those He prepares for more. And every time you choose patience instead of panic, you're proving that you trust His process more than your timeline. You begin to understand that destiny has pace, and sometimes the slower it feels, the deeper it grows. You're no longer desperate to rush to the top. You've learned the top is meaningless if you climb without integrity. You'd rather grow in silence than rise through shortcuts, because shortcuts cheat development, and without development, success will crush you. So you climb, not for fame, not for validation, but because the climb itself is holy ground. It's the place where character is built, where faith turns into action, where purpose is forged. You start working in faith instead of fear. You read the books that feed your mind. You train the habits that sharpen your body. You protect your peace like sacred ground. You prune your circle. Not everyone can handle this version of your growth. You begin to feel the rhythm of persistence, a quiet, steady beat inside you. It's not loud, it's not fast, but it's consistent. You learn to fall in love with progress, not perfection. You learn that patience isn't passive, it's powerful. That waiting doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. You realize that God's delays are not denials, they're divine workouts for your soul. He's building your endurance. He's training your response. He's strengthening your capacity. And now every step of this climb becomes an act of worship. Every deep breath you take through exhaustion says, I trust you. Every setback you face says, I'll try again. Every time you show up tired, unseen, uncelebrated, it's a silent declaration of faith. You're not climbing for the view anymore. You're climbing because this is where you meet God. In the sweat, in the silence, in the stretch. The climb is sacred because it's where you finally understand that growth isn't about speed. It's about surrender. It's about learning to walk through resistance without losing peace. It's about showing up every day even when no one's watching and saying, I'm still becoming. You start seeing obstacles differently. They're not walls, they're weights. They're meant to make you stronger, not stop you. Every challenge is now a rep, building your spiritual muscle. Every delay another set, testing your patience and endurance. You're no longer chasing blessings, you're preparing for them. Because blessings given to an unready person become burdens. So you build quietly, you practice patience daily, you forgive faster, you love deep, you speak less and listen more. Because wisdom doesn't come from noise, it grows in stillness. And every day that you climb, you start to see glimpses of light through the trees. Moments that remind you you're not lost, you're just ascending. The higher you climb, the more the view changes. The noise from below starts to fade. The opinions, the doubt, the fear, they lose power. You stop living to be understood and start living to understand. You stop asking for the storm to end and start learning how to dance in the rain. Because the climb isn't punishment, it's promotion. It's God saying, I trust you enough to strengthen you. Every struggle now feels like preparation. Every challenge feels like training. Every setback feels like a setup for strength. You realize this climb isn't something happening to you. It's happening for you. You are being refined by resistance. You are being taught persistence through pain. You are being built into someone unstoppable. And through every breath, every stumble, every step, you begin to feel it deep within your soul. The mountain was never the enemy. It was the mirror. It showed you what you were made of. It showed you the parts of yourself that only struggle could reveal. And as you keep climbing, as the drums build stronger, as the light grows brighter, you start to whisper again, not with despair, but with strength. I'm not asking why anymore. I'm not asking when anymore. I'm asking how much stronger can I become before this blessing arrives? Because now you understand. Every act of patience is a declaration of faith. Every moment of endurance is a seed for destiny. Every silent climb is a song of trust. And as you move higher, you no longer need proof that God is working. You can feel it. You can sense it in the way your spirit breathes easier now. You can see it in the way you keep standing, keep moving, keep believing, even when nothing yet looks different. That's what the climb does. It doesn't just move your feet, it changes your heart. There comes a point on every climb when the air thins, the noise fades, and all that's left is you. Not the crowd, not the applause, just you and the voice in your head. That's the battle within. It's not the mountain ahead that breaks you. It's the whisper inside that says you can't do this anymore. You feel it, that quiet tug of war between two forces. One says, quit, go back, it's too heavy. The other says, wait, keep going. You've come too far to turn around now. And in that space between quit and continue is where destiny is decided. Because destinies aren't built when everything is clear. They're built when nothing makes sense. When your strength is gone, your faith feels thin, and yet something deep in your chest whispers, keep walking through the fog. The fog is thick here. You can't see the top anymore. You can't see the ground you've covered either. You only see what's in front of you. A few more steps. That's what this battle is, a test of trust when vision is gone. You've come too far to rely on feelings. Now you walk on faith alone. And faith, real faith, isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the trembling kind of courage that says, even if I can't see the outcome, I'll still move. You've done enough. Calling says you're not done until you've become who you were made to be. And in that tension, you start to understand something vital. Growth feels like breaking before it feels like becoming. That's why so many quit right here. Not because they're weak, but because they mistake pressure for punishment. They mistake struggle for misdirection. But what if the pressure you feel is the proof you're close? What if the breaking is simply the birthing? Because this battle within is not the end. It's the refining fire. It's where your calling meets your character, and only one can survive. You look at yourself in the mirror. Your eyes are tired. Your body feels heavy. Your reflection looks like a stranger, stronger maybe, but older somehow. You start to ask yourself questions that sting. Is this worth it? What if I'm wrong? What if I give everything and still fail? And yet another voice, softer but sharper, cuts through the noise. What if you don't? What if you're right? What if this pain is proof you're being sharpened for something greater? You realize something profound. The voice you feed wins the war. Feed fear, and you'll sink. Feed faith, and you'll soar. Because both voices are always there, but one leads to comfort, and the other leads to calling. And calling never feels comfortable. It feels like fire. It burns away everything that's false. The storm outside mirrors the one inside. Wind howls, thunder rolls. The sky cracks open, and still you walk. Because you've learned discipline is faith in motion, not emotional faith. Not convenient faith, but the kind that acts before it feels ready. You stop waiting for motivation. You start choosing movement. Because motivation is seasonal, but discipline is spiritual. Motivation is noise. Discipline is a vow. It's the quiet promise you make to your purpose. I'll show up even when I don't feel like it. I'll keep climbing even when no one is watching. I'll finish what I started even if I have to crawl. That's faith in motion. That's what separates dreamers from doers, believers from achievers, wishers from warriors. In the fog, you can't see progress, but progress can still see you. Every step counts, even the small, shaky ones, because faith doesn't demand you sprint. It only asks that you don't stop, and you won't stop. Not here, not now. You've walked through too much fire to turn cold again. There's a strange rhythm in this part of the journey. Pain and peace, chaos and calm, fear and fire, they all coexist. You start realizing the goal isn't to silence fear, but to move with it. Courage was never the absence of fear. It was movement in its presence. You feel the tremble in your bones, but you keep walking anyway. That tremble, that's growth. That's your spirit learning to trust again. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the mountain, it's the mind. Your mind is a battlefield. Your thoughts are the weapons, and your focus is the deciding factor. What you think about expands. If you focus on fear, it multiplies. If you focus on faith, it magnifies. So you start training your thoughts like soldiers. You teach them discipline. You tell them, we don't panic here, we persevere. You teach your mind that peace is a choice, not a condition. Every time doubt knocks, you answer with determination. Every time fear whispers, you speak back with faith. And slowly, the noise quiets, not because the storm stops, but because you stopped feeding it. This is where warriors are made, in the unseen wars that happen within. The world celebrates victories on the outside, but the greatest victories are silent, fought in the privacy of your own heart. It's the moment you choose to stay when everything in you wants to run. The moment you choose to forgive when bitterness would be easier. The moment you keep believing when logic says there's no reason left to. That's the battle within. And that's where you prove who you are. Prayers need legs. Prayers need movement. So you build, you train, you show up, you create, you forgive, you love. Even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because that's what faith looks like in motion. Not waiting for the fire to die down, but learning how to walk through it. You stop praying for the storm to end and start praying for the strength to stand in it. And that shift, that change, is where destiny begins to form. There are moments when you fall again, when exhaustion hits harder than motivation, when you question everything you've learned. You might break down, you might cry, you might even sit down for a while. But sitting isn't quitting, resting isn't retreating. You can catch your breath. Just don't lose your belief. Even when your legs shake, even when your vision blurs, keep moving through the fog. Because fog doesn't mean the path is gone. It just means the view is hidden for now. And sometimes, God hides the view so you'll focus on the step. If you saw how high the mountain truly is, you might have never started climbing. So He shows you just enough to keep going, step by step, breath by breath, faith by faith. And when fear comes back, and it will, you remind yourself, fear is not the enemy. Standing still is. Fear sharpens faith. Fear is friction, and friction is what creates fire. Every hero you've ever admired felt fear. Every success story you've ever heard faced doubt, but they kept walking. That's the secret. They learned that discipline doesn't depend on emotion. It depends on decision. The decision to show up when you're tired, to speak truth when you're scared, to hold faith when you have no evidence. Discipline is the bridge between belief and breakthrough. It's what transforms prayers into progress. So when the voices in your head argue, when one says quit and the other says wait, choose the voice that asks for patience, not permission. Choose the one that whispers, keep walking. You're closer than you think. Inside this battle, you begin to realize something powerful. The struggle is sacred. It's teaching you what no success story could. It's teaching you humility. It's teaching you reliance. It's teaching you faith that doesn't crumble under pressure. This is where your inner world rewrites itself. This is where your identity upgrades. You no longer identify as the person waiting for something to happen. You become the person becoming through what's happening. You stop saying, I hope I make it. You start saying, I was made for this. That's not arrogance. That's awareness. That's the moment your soul finally catches up to your destiny. You're not the same person who started this climb. That version of you needed motivation. This version of you runs on mission. And mission doesn't quit. Mission doesn't panic. Mission doesn't surrender to fear. Mission moves, even when the mountain trembles, even when the sky falls, even when the world says you can't. Because mission answers to one voice, the one that says you were built for this. As the rhythm grows faster, drums pounding like a heartbeat, you feel a new strength rising inside you. Not loud, not flashy, but steady. That's the mark of true growth, not the absence of fear, but the mastery of movement in its presence. Every step you take now is disciplined breathing. Every breath you take is faith speaking. Every scar you carry is proof you didn't surrender. You're still climbing, still pushing, still walking through the fog. You're no longer trying to escape the storm. You're learning to use, because you've discovered the truth. Napoleon Hill wrote long ago, every adversity carries with it the seed of equal or greater benefit. And this battle inside is that seed, being watered. So you let the rain fall, you let the thunder roar, because you know something new is being formed in the fire. You are now walking in a rhythm that feels divine. Every doubt that once slowed you down is now fuel that drives you forward. You've stopped needing certainty. You've started trusting process. Because clarity doesn't come before movement, it comes from it. Faith reveals itself in motion. You move first, and understanding follows. You no longer beg for peace. You build it. You no longer chase courage. You choose it. You no longer wait for signs. You become one. And that's the miracle of this moment. The fog didn't lift, but you learned to walk through it anyway. That's victory. Because true victory isn't reaching the top. It's reaching a state of mind where no storm can make you stop climbing. Music swells, drums merge with strings, a steady, determined pulse. The voice softens slightly, almost whispering now. You faced the battle within, and you're still standing. Bruised, maybe. Shaken, yes. But unbroken. And that's enough. Because discipline is faith in motion. And as long as you keep walking through the fog, you're already winning. There comes a moment, a breath, a heartbeat in time when it all begins to make sense. You look back at the path you've climbed, the storms, the silence, the waiting, and you finally see it. Every delay, every disappointment, every tear that once fell in confusion was part of the design. Now you see it. The doors you once cried over were never closed. They were being built stronger. You thought God had forgotten your name, but now you understand. He was engraving it deeper into your destiny. He wasn't ignoring you. He was installing something in you. Patience, strength, faith, wisdom. He wasn't saying no. He was saying not yet, because the version of you that prayed for it wasn't yet the version of you who could carry it. You remember the nights when you begged for answers, and all you got was silence. You remember the people who walked away, the opportunities that slipped through your fingers, the moments that broke your heart. But now, standing here in the light, you realize none of it was loss. It was launch. Every rejection was redirection. Every breakdown was breakthrough in disguise. Every detour was divine navigation. Delay wasn't denial. It was development. It was the hidden classroom where God taught you what blessing without character could never teach. Because blessings don't build people, process does. And now you see, the process was the promise. You look at yourself in the mirror now, and the reflection is different. Your eyes are sharper, your voice steadier, your heart quieter but stronger. This is what growth looks like. Not loud, not flashy, but deep. You've become someone who doesn't panic in silence anymore. You've learned how to trust timing instead of forcing outcomes. You've learned that faith isn't something you say, it's something you live. Because faith, real faith, doesn't crumble when life goes quiet. It anchors deeper. You realize the delay was never about what God was doing around you. It was about what He was doing inside you. He was developing your roots. He was testing your foundation. He was making sure your heart could handle the height He was taking you to. Because elevation without preparation leads to collapse, and He loved you too much to let that happen. And now is not the one that started. That old version needed validation. This one needs vision. That old version chased blessings. This one builds them. That old version needed the world's applause. This one only needs God's approval. And that's the beauty of divine delay. It shifts your hunger. It turns your focus from outcome to obedience, from wanting things to becoming someone. Because the truth is, what God gives you will never be greater than who He's shaping you into. Now you can look back and smile through the tears. You understand why He took some people out of your life. You understand why certain doors stayed closed. You understand why the waiting took longer than you thought it would. He wasn't taking things from you. He was taking things off you. The weight of pride, the burden of impatience, the noise of distraction. He was stripping you down so you could finally walk freely into what was always meant for you. You thought the silence meant abandonment, but now you see, it meant construction. God was working behind the scenes, moving the pieces, preparing the path, aligning the timing. He wasn't building your comfort, He was building your capacity. Because big blessings demand big character, and you can't pour from a cracked vessel. So He fixed you first. He fortified your heart. He taught you patience, not because He wanted to frustrate you, but because He wanted your blessing to last. He wanted your success to have roots. He wanted your faith to survive the spotlight. He wanted your gratitude to anchor your growth. The puzzle that once looked like chaos forms a picture of purpose. You see the divine fingerprints all over your pain. The timing makes sense. The tears make sense. Even the silence makes sense. Because every unanswered prayer was actually a better plan being written. Every closed door was protecting something sacred behind it. Every delay was giving you time to become. You used to think you were waiting on God, but all along He was waiting on you, waiting for your faith to mature, waiting for your patience to strengthen, waiting for your spirit to understand that the promise means nothing without preparation. Now you know the wait was worth it, because what He's building in you is stronger than anything you could have built for yourself. The weight that once felt unbearable has turned into wisdom. The same path that made you cry now makes you grateful. You understand what Hill meant when he said, "Every adversity carries with it the seed of equal or greater benefit." You found that seed, and it bloomed inside you. This is the transformation. Not the moment your circumstances change, but the moment you do. It's not about doors opening. It's about realizing you are strong enough to walk through them now. It's not about getting what you prayed for. It's about becoming the kind of person who can sustain it. You've learned that sometimes the miracle is not in what God gives you, but in who you become while waiting for it. You look around and realize your view is different now. The same storm that once felt endless was actually clearing the sky for the sunrise. The clouds that blocked your vision were watering the ground beneath your feet. And now, the light breaks through. It's not blinding, it's beautiful. It's warm, gentle, radiant. The kind of light that feels earned. You see people rising, breakthroughs happening, doors opening. But this time it's different. It's not rushed, it's not forced, it's aligned. Everything flows naturally, easily, effortless, because now your spirit is in sync with your purpose. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer panic, you prepare. You no longer question timing, you trust it. You understand now that the real blessing wasn't in the outcome, it was in the becoming. The pain purified you, the silence matured you, the waiting transformed you, and now you see the divine reason behind it all. God wasn't punishing you with delay, He was protecting your destiny through it. He wasn't saying no, He was saying grow, because the dream wasn't ready for you yet, and you weren't ready for the dream. But now you carry strength instead of scars, wisdom instead of wounds, patience instead of panic, faith instead of fear. You've stepped out of the season of survival and into the season of becoming. You no longer beg for blessings, you build them. You no longer pray for signs, you walk in purpose. You no longer need proof that He's working. You know it, because the evidence is in you. The transformation is the proof. The peace inside you is the confirmation. The miracle was waiting for the moment you were strong enough to hold it. And that moment is now. You're no longer who you were when this journey began. You're no longer broken by what broke you. You're no longer afraid of what's next, because now you've seen it. Delay wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God wasn't saying no, He was saying I'm building you. He was developing the version of you that can handle the weight of what you prayed for. And that realization is the real breakthrough. You're not late, you're not forgotten, you're not behind, you're right where you're supposed to be. Because this right here, this season, this waiting, this silence, it's not a pause in your story, it's a part of your preparation. You're not being punished, you're in training. Every tear was a lesson, every delay was development, every unanswered prayer was redirection towards something better. You were being shaped quietly, for the thing you were called to carry loudly. Every season has purpose, even this one, the painful ones, the quiet ones, the ones that made you doubt if anything was ever moved. They all had meaning, they all had divine fingerprints on them, because the delay is the design, the process is the plan, and what feels like waiting is actually becoming. You've been learning what patience really is, not passively standing still, but actively trusting while you build. You've been learning what strength really means, not avoiding the storm but standing still inside it. You've been learning what faith really feels like, not in answered prayers, but in continued obedience when you don't yet see results. The process is proof that you were chosen, because God doesn't waste time training the uncalled. He invests in those He intends to send, and that's what this was, an investment in your destiny. He was teaching you endurance before elevation. He was anchoring your peace before promotion. He was developing your faith before fulfillment. And now you carry something unshakable, not just hope, but peace, not just vision, but wisdom, not just belief, but becoming. You're no longer racing the clock. You're walking with time, because you finally understand the delay was never delay. It was divine design. You were never late to your purpose. You were being prepared for it. You are ready now, not because the waiting ended, but because you changed within it. You've grown, you've healed, you've become, and that's the beauty of it all. You didn't just survive the process, you became the proof of it.